Ladies and gentlemen, life is a journey of connection. Love, respect, and trust are its lifelines. But what happens when one of those lifelines feels like it's been severed? When a man ignores you, it feels like the weight of silence threatens to crush the very spirit within you. It stings, doesn't it? Let me tell you this, his silence doesn't define your worth. The real question is, what are you going to do about it? When a man ignores you, it's easy to internalize his silence as a reflection of your own shortcomings. You might question your worth, replay conversations in your mind, and wonder what you could have done differently. But more often than not, his silence has little to do with you and everything to do with the battle he's fighting within himself. Ignoring someone can be a shield away to avoid vulnerability, confrontation, or accountability. It's not that he doesn't see you, it's that he's struggling to face himself. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that reflects not just your physical image, but the deepest parts of your soul, the truths you try to hide, the fears you suppress, and the insecurities you carry. For some, that reflection is too much to bear. A man may retreat into silence because being present with you requires him to confront parts of himself he'd rather keep buried. Perhaps your strength magnifies his weakness. Perhaps your clarity highlights his confusion. Whatever the reason, the silence becomes a refuge, not from you, but from himself. This isn't an excuse for his behavior, but it is an explanation. Society often teaches men to equate vulnerability with weakness. They're told to be strong, to suppress emotions, to solve problems without ever admitting they're struggling. Over time, this pressure builds walls that silence enforces. When faced with moments that demand emotional honesty or accountability, silence feels safer than risking exposure. He might fear failing you or falling short of your expectations. If he's grappling with doubts about his role in your relationship or his ability to meet your needs, silence can be his way of avoiding a conversation he doesn't feel ready to have. Instead of admitting fear or uncertainty, he chooses to retreat, leaving you in the dark. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that caring deeply often comes with a fear of not being enough. But there's another layer to this one that speaks to power. A man who ignores you may do so because he senses you're a mirror to truths he hasn't yet learned to accept. If your confidence, resilience, or emotional intelligence contrasts with his inner struggles, it can create discomfort. You become a reminder of the work he hasn't done. Facing you would mean facing himself, and that's a journey he might not be ready to embark on. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone avoid difficult conversations, not because they don't care, but because they fear the weight of those conversations? Ignoring you is often easier than acknowledging the pain, guilt, or inadequacy that might come to the surface. It's a defense mechanism, a way to maintain control in a situation that feels overwhelming. Yet the truth is, no one can outrun themselves forever. Silence may provide temporary relief, but it doesn't solve the problem. The fears that drive a man to ignore you don't disappear, they fester. And in that festering, relationships erode, trust diminishes, and opportunities for growth slip away. So while his silence may feel personal, it's essential to understand that it's often a reflection of his internal battle. It doesn't excuse the pain it causes, but it does reframe how you interpret it. His inability to face you is rooted in his inability to face himself. And that, my friend, is a journey he must navigate alone. When someone ignores you, it's natural to focus on their actions, to dissect their behavior and try to uncover their reasons. But amid the confusion and hurt, there's a profound opportunity, a moment to pause and turn the gaze inward. It's easy to look outward for answers, but true growth begins when we take a moment to ask ourselves, what am I missing about my own needs, my own value, and my own life? A call for self-reflection isn't about blame or guilt, it's about rediscovering who you are and what you truly deserve. Too often we seek external validation to fill internal voids. We wait for someone else's attention to confirm our worth, someone else's love to make us feel whole. When a man ignores you, the sting of his silence can amplify those insecurities. You might find yourself questioning everything: your appearance, your actions, your worthiness. But the truth is, no one's acknowledgement can substitute for the love and respect you owe yourself. The silence you face might not be about him, it might be a mirror asking you to confront whether you've been ignoring your own heart. Take a moment to consider this. How much energy have you invested in seeking approval from others? How many times have you prioritized their needs while neglecting your own? When you place your sense of self-worth in someone else's hands, you're giving them power they didn't earn and might not even realize they hold. Self-reflection invites you to reclaim that power, to look inward and ask, am I giving myself the love, respect, and attention I'm expecting from others? When you reflect on yourself, you begin to notice patterns. Perhaps this isn't the first time you felt ignored or undervalued. Maybe there's a part of you that's grown used to settling for less than you deserve. But settling isn't love, it's fear disguised as acceptance. It's the fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough, or the fear of starting over. Self-reflection shines a light on these fears, allowing you to confront them with honesty and courage. It's not easy to face these truths. Looking inward can be uncomfortable, even painful. You might uncover parts of yourself you've tried to hide: insecurities, past wounds, or unmet dreams. But this process isn't about judgment, it's about understanding. When you understand yourself, you gain clarity about what you truly need and deserve. And with clarity comes strength to set boundaries, to demand respect, and to walk away from anything that doesn't honor your worth. Self-reflection also challenges you to redefine how you see silence. Instead of interpreting it as rejection, consider it an invitation, a chance to reconnect with yourself. When someone else steps back, it creates space. That space can feel empty at first, but it's also a blank canvas. It's an opportunity to fill your life with things that bring you joy, purpose, and fulfillment. What dreams have you put on hold while waiting for someone else's attention? What passions have you set aside while trying to make a relationship work? Use this moment to reignite those flames. Reflect on the life you want to create, independent of anyone else's presence. When you focus on building a life you love, you attract people who align with your energy, your values, and your vision. But perhaps the most powerful question self-reflection asks is this: am I showing up for myself the way I want others to show up for me? It's easy to demand loyalty, respect, and love from others, but are you giving those things to yourself? Are you setting boundaries that protect your peace? Are you pursuing goals that honor your potential? Are you treating yourself with the kindness and compassion you wish to receive? This is not about perfection, it's about intention. Self-reflection isn't a one-time exercise, it's a lifelong practice of checking in with yourself, realigning with your values, and growing into the person you were always meant to be. When you embrace this process, you begin to realize that your worth was never tied to someone else's attention. It's rooted in the way you see yourself, the way you care for yourself, and the way you choose to live your life. The silence of another may hurt, but the silence within yourself can be transformative. Listen closely to what it's telling you. Within it lies the answers you've been searching for all along. When a man ignores you, it's not just the silence that stings, it's the underlying message of control. Silence isn't always passive. It can be a powerful tool in the game of power dynamics. It's a way to shift the balance, to make you question yourself, to leave you in a state of uncertainty. Whether intentional or not, ignoring someone creates a dynamic where one person holds the upper hand while the other is left grasping for answers. The real question isn't why he's doing it, but why you're allowing it to hold so much weight in your life. The act of ignoring someone has a psychological impact. It disrupts the natural rhythm of communication, leaving a void that's hard to ignore. In that void, doubt and insecurity creep in. You start to overanalyze, replaying conversations, searching for clues, and wondering what went wrong. This response is natural, but it's also where the imbalance begins. By placing your energy into decoding someone else's silence, you unconsciously hand over your power. You let their lack of response dictate your emotions, your peace, and even your self-perception. It's important to recognize that ignoring isn't always about indifference. Sometimes it's a deliberate move to control the narrative, to shift focus, or to avoid accountability. By withholding communication, a man can create a situation where you feel compelled to chase after answers, seek closure, or make amends for things you didn't even do. This dynamic gives him a sense of control, a way to dictate the pace of interaction without taking responsibility for his actions or feelings. This isn't to say that every instance of being ignored is a calculated maneuver. Sometimes people retreat into silence because they genuinely don't know how to handle a situation. But regardless of intent, the effect is the same. It leaves you in a vulnerable position, waiting for someone else to decide when and how the silence will break. The longer you stay in this space, the more you reinforce the imbalance, giving their actions or inactions a significance they might not even deserve. But here's the truth: power dynamics only exist when both parties participate in them. Ignoring someone only becomes a power move if you allow it to destabilize you. The key to breaking free from this cycle is recognizing that you have a choice. You can choose not to engage in the game. You can choose to prioritize your peace over their silence. You can choose to reclaim the power that is inherently yours. Start by asking yourself a hard question: why does this silence matter so much to you? Is it because you feel unseen, unheard, or unvalued? Is it because you've tied your sense of self-worth to his attention? These are tough truths to confront, but they hold the key to regaining your balance. When you realize that your worth isn't dependent on someone else's acknowledgement, their silence loses its grip on you. Another aspect of this dynamic is the fear of losing the connection entirely. Ignoring someone creates a sense of ambiguity. Are they pulling away, or are they waiting for you to reach out? This uncertainty can keep you trapped, hesitant to make a move for fear of making things worse. But here's the reality: a connection that relies on you chasing after it isn't a connection worth holding on to. True relationships are built on mutual respect, not on one person holding the other in emotional limbo. Reclaiming your power doesn't mean retaliating with silence of your own or trying to manipulate the situation. It means standing firm in your sense of self. It means deciding that your peace is non-negotiable. It means understanding that someone's choice to ignore you says more about them than it does about you. When you refuse to let their silence dictate your actions, you shift the dynamic, you take back control of your emotions, your time, and your energy. You show yourself in them that you won't be a pawn in a game of power. You are the author of your own narrative, and you won't let anyone else hold the pen. This shift isn't always easy. It requires self-awareness, courage, and a commitment to valuing yourself above all else. But the reward is freedom, the freedom to live a life where your worth isn't tied to someone else's choices, and your happiness isn't held hostage by their silence. That, my friend, is the ultimate power. The fear of losing control is a powerful and often hidden force that drives human behavior. When a man ignores you, this fear might be the very thing fueling his actions. It's not always a calculated move to hurt you, but rather a reflection of his internal struggle, a battle between maintaining a sense of control and the vulnerability that comes with truly connecting. This fear can manifest in subtle ways, but its impact on relationships is profound, leaving both parties grappling with its consequences. Control offers a sense of security. For many people, maintaining control feels like holding on to stability in a world full of uncertainty. It's a defense mechanism, a way to manage fears of inadequacy, rejection, or failure. When a man feels that his sense of control is being threatened, whether by the dynamics of a relationship, his perception of himself, or his fears of emotional exposure, his instinct may be to retreat into silence. Ignoring you becomes a way to reclaim that control, even if it's at the expense of open communication and connection. This fear isn't always apparent, even to him. Society often teaches men to equate control with strength and emotional vulnerability with weakness. They are conditioned to believe that being in control means having the answers, being unshakable, and never showing signs of doubt or fear. But relationships challenge this notion. They demand openness, emotional honesty, and the ability to navigate uncertainties together. For someone who fears losing control, this can feel overwhelming, even destabilizing. When you enter someone's life as a strong, independent, and emotionally aware individual, it can magnify their internal fears. Your confidence might shine a light on their insecurities. Your ability to express emotions openly may highlight their struggles to do the same. Instead of embracing these differences as opportunities for growth, the fear of losing control might push them to withdraw. Ignoring you becomes a shield, a way to protect themselves from confronting emotions they're not ready to face. The irony is that this retreat into silence often creates the very instability they're trying to avoid. By ignoring you, they introduce uncertainty into the relationship. The lack of communication leaves you guessing, questioning, and overanalyzing, which can erode trust and connection over time. In their attempt to maintain control, they inadvertently lose the very foundation of what makes a relationship strong: mutual respect, trust, and understanding. On the receiving end of this dynamic, it's easy to feel like you're the problem. You might wonder if you've done something wrong, said something out of place, or failed to meet their expectations. But the truth is, their fear of losing control is not a reflection of your actions, it's a reflection of their internal state. This realization doesn't diminish the hurt their silence causes, but it does reframe the way you see their behavior. This fear of losing control also extends beyond the relationship. For some, life's uncertainties create a constant need to grasp onto something they can manage. If their career, finances, or personal goals feel unstable, they may project this need for control onto their relationship. Ignoring you becomes a way to create space, to retreat into a world where they feel less exposed, less vulnerable. It's not about punishing you, it's about preserving a sense of self that feels threatened. But here's the paradox: controlling relationships is an illusion. True connection requires surrendering to the ebb and flow of emotions, allowing space for vulnerability, and accepting that love doesn't come with guarantees. The fear of losing control stems from a misunderstanding of what relationships demand. They're not about dominance or maintaining a perfect facade. They're about partnership, collaboration, and the willingness to navigate life's uncertainties together. This fear also creates missed opportunities. By retreating into silence, a man denies himself the chance to experience the growth and healing that comes with vulnerability. Relationships are meant to challenge us, to push us out of our comfort zones, and to help us confront the very fears that hold us back. When he ignores you out of fear, he's not just shutting you out, he's shutting out the possibility of growth, connection, and deeper understanding. The challenge is to recognize this fear for what it is and to decide how you'll respond. While it's not your responsibility to fix someone else's fears, it is within your power to protect your peace and prioritize your own well-being. Their fear of losing control doesn't have to dictate the course of your life. Instead, it can serve as a reminder of the importance of choosing relationships built on mutual trust, respect, and the courage to face fears together. The urgency of self-worth is not just a concept, it's a call to action. It's a recognition that life is too fleeting, too precious to spend a single moment questioning your value or waiting for someone else to affirm it. When someone ignores you or diminishes your importance, the temptation to spiral into self-doubt can be overwhelming. But the truth is, the longer you linger in that place, the more you lose sight of the power and potential within you. Self-worth isn't something to be discovered, it's something to be claimed, nurtured, and fiercely protected, because your time and energy are finite, and they deserve to be invested wisely. We tie our sense of worth to the actions and opinions of others. We wait for acknowledgement, affection, or validation to confirm what we should already know: that we matter, that we are enough. This dependence can become a trap, a cycle that leaves you chasing approval from people who may never be capable of giving it. When someone ignores you, it can feel like they've taken a piece of your self-esteem with them. But here's the reality: no one has the power to define your worth unless you let them. The urgency of self-worth lies in recognizing that every moment you spend questioning your value is a moment you could be using to build a life that reflects it. Think about the opportunities lost when you hesitate to pursue your dreams, because you're waiting for someone else's permission. Consider the relationships you've held on to, even when they didn't serve you, because you feared that letting go would leave you feeling unworthy of love. Self-worth demands that you stop delaying your happiness, stop compromising your standards, and start living in alignment with the truth of who you are. When you prioritize your self-worth, you reclaim your time and energy. You stop investing in people who don't see your value, and you start investing in yourself. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of unlearning the patterns and beliefs that have kept you stuck. It's about recognizing the ways you settle for less and deciding once and for all that you deserve more. This isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation upon which all meaningful relationships and achievements are built. Ignoring the urgency of self-worth has consequences. It allows others to set the terms of your life, to dictate how you feel, and to control your narrative. When you don't assert your value, you send a message to yourself and to others that you're willing to accept whatever is offered. But when you embrace your self-worth, you establish boundaries that protect your peace and prioritize your well-being. You make it clear that your time, energy, and love are not commodities to be taken for granted. There's also a deeper reason why self-worth is urgent. It's about living authentically. When you recognize your worth, you stop pretending to be someone you're not in order to gain acceptance. You stop diminishing your light to make others comfortable. You start showing up as your true self unapologetically. This authenticity not only empowers you, but it also attracts people and opportunities that align with your values and vision. Self-worth isn't just about relationships, it's about how you approach every aspect of your life. It's about the jobs you apply for, the goals you set, and the risks you take. When you know your worth, you don't settle for mediocrity. You pursue excellence because you believe you deserve it. You take bold steps because you trust that you are capable. You face challenges with resilience because you know that your value isn't diminished by failure. The world often tries to convince you that self-worth is conditional, that it's based on your appearance, your achievements, or your ability to meet others' expectations. But the truth is, your worth is intrinsic. It doesn't fluctuate based on external circumstances. It's constant, unshakable, and yours to claim. The urgency lies in recognizing this truth now, not later. Because every day you delay is a day spent living beneath your potential. The path to self-worth isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. It requires letting go of the need for external validation and turning inward to find your own voice. It requires forgiving yourself for past mistakes and embracing the lessons they've taught you. It requires standing firm in the face of rejection, knowing that another person's inability to see your value says nothing about your worth. The urgency of self-worth is a reminder that your time is limited, your energy is sacred, and your life is uniquely yours. Don't wait for someone else to recognize your value before you start living like it matters. Because it does. Right now, in this moment, you have the power to choose yourself, to honor your worth, to set higher standards, and to create a life that reflects the greatness within you. It's easy to see being ignored as a rejection, a slight that leaves you questioning your value and place in someone's life. But what if the very act of being ignored wasn't a punishment, but a gift? What if, instead of being seen as a loss, it could be reframed as a blessing in disguise, a moment of clarity that pushes you toward growth, strength, and self-discovery? To redefine ignorance as a blessing is to embrace a profound truth. Sometimes the silence and distance you experience from others are exactly what you need to realign with yourself and your purpose. When someone ignores you, it forces a pause. In that stillness, as uncomfortable as it might feel, there's an opportunity to step back and evaluate. Are you chasing something or someone that isn't aligned with your values or worth? Are you placing too much of your happiness in the hands of others? Their silence might feel like an absence, but it's actually creating a space that allows you to reflect on where you're investing your energy and whether that investment is serving your highest good. This pause also creates a moment for clarity. Often when we're caught in the flow of a relationship or a connection, We overlook red flags, dismiss our own needs, and silence our intuition. Ignorance, when reframed, is like the universe's way of pressing the brakes, giving you a chance to ask the tough questions you might have been avoiding. Why does this person's attention matter so much? What does their absence reveal about the relationship? What can this moment teach you about yourself? Silence has a way of revealing what words sometimes hide. When someone ignores you, it can unearth truths you might not have wanted to face. Maybe the relationship was one-sided. Maybe the respect and effort you were giving weren't being reciprocated. Ignorance then becomes a blessing because it uncovers realities that allow you to make better, more informed choices moving forward. It's not about assigning blame, but about recognizing what is and deciding how you want to move through it. Being ignored can also push you towards self-reliance. It teaches you to stand on your own, to find comfort in your own company, and to build strength from within. While we're wired to seek connection, there's an immense power in learning to be okay when that connection isn't there. It's in those moments of solitude that you begin to understand your resilience, your ability to thrive, even when others step back. What you learn about yourself in these moments becomes a foundation for deeper confidence and self-respect. There's also the blessing of redirection. When someone ignores you, it often means their chapter in your life is either closing or shifting. It's not easy to accept, but sometimes people are removed from your life to make space for something better. Their silence can guide you away from relationships that aren't meant to endure, steering you toward those that will nurture and support you. What feels like rejection in the moment can be a redirection toward growth, love, and fulfillment that you couldn't have found otherwise. Redefining ignorance as a blessing also shifts your perspective on control. Being ignored can feel like a loss of control, a situation where you're left waiting for someone else to make a move, to explain, to re-engage. But the blessing lies in realizing you don't need to wait. You have the power to decide how you'll respond, how you'll interpret the silence, and how you'll move forward. Choosing to see it as an opportunity for growth rather than a source of pain puts the power back in your hands. Another gift hidden in being ignored is the chance to reevaluate your boundaries. Sometimes the act of being overlooked or dismissed can highlight areas where you've overextended yourself, compromised your values, or failed to set limits. It's an invitation to ask yourself if you've been giving too much to someone who hasn't earned it, and to adjust your boundaries to protect your energy and well-being moving forward. The blessing of ignorance lies in the freedom it brings. When someone steps away, when their silence replaces their presence, you're given a choice. You can dwell on what's missing, or you can focus on what remains and what's possible. Their absence can free you from dynamics that no longer serve you, from patterns that limit you, and from relationships that keep you from growing into the fullest version of yourself. Being ignored may never feel good, but it doesn't have to feel like the end. Instead, it can be a beginning, a powerful push towards self-awareness, resilience, and a life that honors your worth. Redefining ignorance as a blessing isn't about ignoring the pain it causes. It's about seeing that pain as part of the transformation, a necessary step on the journey to something greater.